great American theologian, Reinhold Niebuhr, who said, "It is the sad duty of politics to establish justice in a sinful world." The second thing I want to say is that Dwight David Eisenhower, as the Allied Supreme Commander, wrote a letter to a friend in Kansas in which he said, "Politics is a noble profession." In the presidential campaign of 1968, working for Robert Kennedy, I heard him say many, many times, "Politics is the noblest profession of all." In this life, you can choose a profession that's daunting in its challenges, none more so than to run for public office and to become a public servant. In a democracy, 50.1% decides who wins. And if you're on the other side of that equation, you lose. But that means that even though you've won, there were almost as many people who thought you didn't deserve to win as who voted for you to succeed to office. We do an extraordinary disservice to this country and to our democracy when we demean those of other points of view and say they're not serious, or that they're driven by ego or ambition. I don't believe that. I have never thought because somebody held a different point of view that they thereby were less serious than me, less principled than me, less caring about our country than me. But in a democracy, at the beginning of the night, it is that 50.1%. Our guest today, when he was 18, went to Mississippi to join the Freedom Riders in one of the great, great causes of our history, the Civil Rights Movement, and he went to jail for 2 months. He was in jail in Mississippi, but counted himself lucky because others who went to Mississippi never went home. They went 6 feet under because they were assassinated, because they dared to believe that when the Constitution affirms the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, that that's a truth that we embrace. He ran for the school board as a professor of history at San Diego State, having achieved a doctorate in the history of science from one of America's great universities, Cornell, was elected to the city council, and was elected to the United States Congress. And now he's been elected to the highest office within the reach of the people of this city to give to any person, the high office of mayor. He faces many challenges. No one knows how this will turn out, but I know that he will do his very greatest to ensure that he succeeds, because if he succeeds, we all succeed. Welcome, please, the 35th mayor of the great city of San Diego, the Honorable Robert Filner.
Thank you, Reverend Petrovich. I just want to correct one thing. It's not the First Lady designate, it's the First Lady. I'd like to introduce you my First Lady and San Diego's First Lady, Bronwyn. We're going to make a great team. She happens to be an expert on disability and homeless issues, and she's going to work very hard with me on those. And she got me this far, so we'll succeed with it. Thank you. Thank you, Bronwyn. You know, I went through all of this stuff to run for mayor just for one purpose, to be introduced by George Petrovich. So thank you, George. I'm glad you said this guy was from the Human Relations Commission. It looks like the governor of California is here, so thank you, Jerry, for taking a back row there. And speaking of introductions, Dick, my aim in life, I want you to tell the colonel this. Since I do have a PhD, I want to be introduced once by Jerry Coleman with saying, "Oh, doctor," okay? Would you? All right, so thank you all. We're looking forward to an incredible 4 years. By the way, Scott Peter is going to be a great congressman, and although you could tell he's still a rookie, he said there's one way I could keep that office. Actually, there's another way. He could have as close election as he just had, and then come out the winner again, and you keep your office. So you can arrange that, right? So there is a way. Just got to ask the senior people here, and we'll figure it out. I'm really looking forward to the next 4 years, although I do it with a lot of humility. I mean, it's an awesome responsibility to be elected the mayor of the 8th biggest city in our nation. And I'm going to need all the help I can get. So we need all the involvement, all the interest, the prayers of all of you. We're going to involve students, by the way, in this governance process. As George said, I got involved when I was a student. I happened to have the honor of meeting Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when I was 13 years old. And I committed myself right then to nonviolent direct action. And so I was organizing with Dr. King by 15 years old. So you can have an effect on our nation and our city, but we got to get you involved, and we're going to do that. There's an alumnus of here who organized the first Democratic club in La Jolla Country Day. And I went to the first meeting, and that was Jared Polis, who is now a congressman from Colorado in the United States Congress. So things start here, and you can do whatever you want. So I want you to make sure I'm going to get you involved, get me involved, and we'll do some great things together. Let me just first, I'm going to speak a little bit, I don't know, academically for two seconds, since I am an academic, and then get more personal, I guess. I think this election was a way for San Diego to begin to adjust its political system to demographic and other changes that occurred in the last 20, even more years. That is, we are a different city than we were 2 and 3 decades ago, but the political establishment has not changed. I mean, just demographically, we are now a majority-minority city, as they say. I mean, a majority of our citizens are people of color. If you walk into the halls of power, wherever they are, or the Chamber of Commerce, or wherever, you don't find that same distribution, let me just say, on that one, clear level. But there have been, demographic changes, social changes, economic changes. There are people in this city who are incredibly innovative and active, and the Chamber doesn't know who they are because they got one little group sort of being involved with everything. So I think what this election was fundamentally about was saying we're going to change, we're going to bring in we're going to have a harmony between the changes and the political structure. Because I promise, and it was a big thing in my campaign, that the appointments I make, the staff people, the boards and commissions, the contracts that we let, up until a few years ago, we're a $3 billion operation in the city of San Diego. We give out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts for small businesses, for big businesses. Maybe 1% of those contracts were to people of color. I mean, that's just not the way we should be running this city. And we're going to change that. And I think that it was that hope for change that drove, the majority. And so you're going to see, literally, different faces at the seats of power, basically, is how I put it. We're not kicking out the other people. We have to work together, as George keeps reminding me. But we're going to move them over. And there's going to be new seats at the table. There's going to be people of color, women, those who are interested in education, the arts, those who have just, a different way of looking at our city. And I think what I've been calling the establishment, we'll find out, is this is better for them too. I mean, we're going to be a stronger city. We're going to be a stronger city when we tap all of the diversity, all of creativity, all of our neighborhoods, all of us together. We're going to be a stronger city, and everybody's going to do better. I mean, I think we're going to show that, and that's what the surprise is going to be when we do this, when we go through some of these things. I was talking to the head of our tourist bureau, Conviz, and he was complaining that people around the city don't support him. They always say no. And I said, have you ever involved them in the decision-making process here? I mean, for example, we have these world-class murals under the Coronado Bridge in what's called Chicano Park. They don't market those. They don't have very many Latinos involved in trying to market. There's a African American Historical Society downtown that has a little office. But they have incredible kinds of collections that show some of the origins of modern jazz are right in downtown San Diego. Why aren't we celebrating that? The Chinese Historical Society is downtown. Incredible building and background for Chinese who came, here because of the Transcontinental Railroad. We don't involve them in marketing our city. Think of the tourism that would come, if we have those kinds of things being involved. But the people who are dealing with those issues would be involved in our city governance. They could, the small businesses that surround that and in those areas of city would be greatly advanced. So we could do a lot more for people who have not been involved, right? Just by bringing them into that tourist marketing. I mean, it's some easy changes that could be made. So that's the kind of thing that I hope that the changes that we make. We're going to announce the first, 20 appointments to the mayor's staff early next week. And it's going to be a different set of faces than people have seen before. When Ms. Pelosi announced the composition of new Congress, Scott, she said it's the first time in history that the Democratic caucus has a majority of people who are women or people of color. I mean, and we're going to far outdo her when we announce our first 20 people. I think there are 3 white males in that group. So, again, women, people of color are going to participate in this government, and we can talk when we talk about tolerance and respect. One way that brings that is when you have to go into the planning commission for for your vote, and there are African Americans and Asians on that board. There's sort of a new respect for the community that they are part of, and so we hope to change it and make it a stronger city. We're going to be a stronger city when we involve everybody in it. So that's going to be my aim. In a broader sense, I would like to establish not only a credibility and excitement about San Diego in local government, but to set the stage for what we know. There's no rational discussions on certain issues in this in our political environment. You can't mention the word tax. Cut that out of this. I just said we can't mention. You can't mention taxes, right? I mean, you're all it's all evil at what goes on in government. Well, what if we had a rational discussion of our infrastructure needs at some point? I mean, you can't do it right away. But we have to do it. We're going to have these rational discussions. I mean, we have a city hall, that is outdated. It costs us more money to have an old city hall, but you can't even discuss having, a municipal building because, it's all you politicians want. Just, you want a Taj Mahal. But I'd like to have a rational discussion about that. And because of the work in George and others, we have a strong mayor form of government. Thank you, George Petrovich, for all that work. It was not easy. People were not convinced, but I think this strong mayor, with a strong council, is going to be able to do some things that we just couldn't do before. So thank you for your efforts on behalf of strong mayor and many other things in this city. So I think we're going to be able to get things done in a way that has not before, and you'll see a whole new involvement and excitement. When I say excitement, we have assets and resources and incredible things in this city that, a potential that we just haven't matched, that our own citizens don't know about, let alone tourists. We have 4 great river park systems, for example. San Dieguito, San Diego, something called Choyas Creek, and Otay River. Around each of those rivers and park systems, there's a community group that has worked for decade or more. They have established, they've built trails, they've bought property. Each one is about 60, 70%, a couple of 60%, 60%, 70% done. You can go 2 minutes off a freeway in San Diego and be basically on primitive trails. I mean, it's incredible. And yet there's no signage, there's no knowledge. I mean, some of those you probably never even heard of. They're incredible assets. We're not even enjoying them on our own. So how can we invite tourists to do that? You go to Otay Valley Regional Park, which I've been working on from the time I was on the city council. It's an incredible asset. I bet you nobody here has ever been there. You don't even know where it is. The people in the neighborhood don't know where it is. But it's an incredible place to go to get a little bit out of our city, our urban environment, and you're on trails that natural habitat and stuff. It's great. So let's talk about those assets in a different way. How many people here have heard, we talk about a city that we can have biking infrastructure. That's, but let's get people excited about that. Anybody here know what a ciclovia is? Man, I thought this was a city club. You guys are supposed to be aware. Ciclovia, it literally means bikeway, but it's become a movement. It started in Colombia and South America, and what it means basically is you can block traffic, or you cut cars out of an area or a certain geographic area. You can do it for a few hours. You can do it for a day. You can do it for a weekend, and people walk and bike and skateboard, and there's art fairs and street fairs, and people it brings a community together. LA, and it's sweeping America. LA has had 5 of the ciclovias, and they changed the name to Ciclavia. So there's a big LA in the middle. So when I started my campaign for mayor, I said, I'm going to have a contest. I want to have a ciclovia, but with an SD somewhere in the middle. And I figured that would go on for a year. In 7 seconds, somebody yelled out, Ciclos Dia, as we pluralize it and we make it Hispanic. Great. So we're going to have Ciclos Dia in San Diego. We're going to start when people know have a sense of what their community is. I mean, when crises come like blackouts or snowstorms and people start talking to each other, we ought to have, by the way, you should sponsor this, George, an anniversary of that blackout that took place a little over a year ago. Because people were, they set up candles and invited their friends in for dinner, and they took advantage of this thing and created a whole new set. Why, we should have a celebration of the blackout. I mean, just black everything out for.
Will SDG&E sponsor it?
Yes. They're looking for a way to get into my good graces. So we're going to have Ciclos Dia, and people get a sense of the beauty of a community and walking and talking. And so when I talk about building the infrastructure for bikeways in San Diego, they'll know what we're talking about. Yeah, thank you. They'll know what we're talking about and get excited about it, maybe support it. Because, I think the city that has the best bike infrastructure in the country is Portland, Oregon. The lady who did that wrote a book called Joyride, Mia Burke. We're just going to bring her down and set up the whole thing here in San Diego. So, but we got to get people excited about it and understanding why it's so important. I took a little bike ride. I'm not a biker myself, but I took a bike ride from Little Italy to Old Town with bicyclists to show me some of the issues. I mean, right away. I mean, you're on a bike for 2 minutes, and bike lanes appear and disappear, random thing. Car doors open and right on you, and you get slammed. Freeways cross what are supposed to be bike lanes. I mean, there is no real infrastructure here, so nobody really can do anything. There are enthusiasts who do it, but in general. So I want to get people excited and understanding about it. But what I found just on a little bike ride, you look at San Diego differently. When you walk or bike, you're out of the car and you see some of the architecture, some of the beauty that we have here. I mean, it was just an incredible experience. And when people just do that, and if we have these Ciclos Dia, they will have a chance to do it, you see San Diego differently. And it becomes much more exciting. And people realize what a livable neighborhood is, what a pedestrian-friendly neighborhood is, what a bikeable community is. They don't know that. They just hear it, oh, he's going to take away my car or something like that. I mean, no, we want to see that there's other futures and we're at a stage in San Diego in two ways. One, we completely built out basically all these suburbs that we've had so we can concentrate on now livable communities that we have built. And second, Mayor Sanders, to his great credit, has left us, I mean, it took him a long time, and he really concentrated on it. He's left us, and I summarize it in 2 words, but it took a long time, a balanced budget and a bond rating. So we can begin to talk about exciting things again. We have a stability in our financial situation that we can begin again to talk about potential and growth and excitement in a way that we just couldn't, I think. By the way, the other major difference between the previous mayor and I is he is a former police chief, and I started my career in jail. So I think it's a step forward, frankly. Where's my police detail? You know, they spent my whole last 20 years trying to arrest me. Now they got to protect me. And thanks, Mike. Actually, he's undercover. I just violated all the rules on him. He looks undercover, doesn't he? He's got a big gun and earpiece, right? So I think we're going to embark on a new endeavor, and I tell people this can't happen. You can't just elect somebody and leave it to happen. I mean, the civic engagement that the City Club has done now for, let's see, George, I met you 33 years ago, so you must have been doing this for 35 years? 38. I mean, the civic engagement that George and all of you have sponsored, we have to really bring in a sense of what that means. And we're going to do that. I talked in the campaign, and I'll talk about it every day when I'm mayor, is that we have to put neighborhoods first. But when I meet about neighborhoods, it's not just their infrastructure. And when I talk about neighborhoods, I'm talking about La Jolla as well as I'm talking about, San Isidro or Linda Vista. I mean, every neighborhood needs infrastructure. Every neighborhood needs to have their city work for them. So when I talk about neighborhoods, I'm talking about infrastructure, but I'm talking also about engagement of the community. People have to feel involved. We're going to look at people's involvement in a way that says, if you're involved, you're going to have power. I mean, you're going to be listened to. Not only listened to, other cities have done this. For example, at a level below what we call planning areas, we have neighborhoods. There's a neighborhood of La Jolla. And by the way, we're trying, one thing that define neighborhoods, there are things that define neighborhood. Each one is different. One thing that divides the La Jolla neighborhood is the La Jolla post office. It was built at a time, during the WPA, but it's a gathering place. It's a beautiful building, and the post office is trying to sell it. And I want to make sure that if they do it, or maybe we can stop them from doing it, but that building remains as a community place. But so every neighborhood has these neighborhood things that bring people together, and I'm going to listen to the people who care about that. And we're going to bring to the neighborhood, as I started saying, the technical term I think is decision district. That is, why don't neighborhoods, whether it's North Park or La Jolla, have the ability when you get to the, not the macro level, but when you get to closer things, that they won't decide zoning, but they should decide the color of their trash cans, or the striping of the parking, or how fast the traffic is going by, whether to help business. I mean, these shouldn't have to go through city bureaucracy. Why doesn't the neighborhood decide those? And so, because everybody going to say, I could have done that thing in half the time the city did and half the cost. So I'm going to say, okay, let's see if you can do it. And we're going to, start some pilot things and see if, when somebody, where's the guy that showed me the OB comfort station? Thank you. It took them, 10 years to build those bathrooms off? But he said, we could have done it not only in half the time, but half the cost. And when they did it, they left the stalls off the bathroom, so you can't, there's no privacy in the thing that took so long and so much bureaucracy to build. So we want to say to OB, you do it. I mean, we decided it. We appropriated the money. Now go do it. You could decide, because you know best. You know where the traffic is, whether it's pedestrian or others. You know what people want in that comfort stage. You know what color you want. I mean, all that stuff. So I want to try to do that. Thank you for educating me. A campaign. George understands this, and I think most of you do. Politics is, if seen right, is a way to bring people and their elected representatives together. And if you look at it right, I use a campaign to learn. What do people are interested in? What do they want? How are they looking at the world? And then you try to put it in action when you take office. I mean, if you do it right. But you have to keep that relationship. And as I said, I can't do this alone. When Obama was elected in 2008, there was an incredible sense of hope and optimism and change. And then people say, oh, we elected him. Go do it. You can't, and you disengage. It can't happen because then he gets surrounded, and I could be surrounded by all, the people, the special interests, the money, the corporate kinds of folks who just surround you everywhere. And if people are not engaged, then they start dictating the agenda and the whole mood. I mean, why did when the health care thing come about in Obama's first term? I mean, the Tea Party folks took over all those town hall meetings, and we got Obamacare. I mean, the people who wanted a public option should have taken over those meetings. We could have had a whole different debate in this country. And Obama had to drop the public option for health care before he even got into negotiations, he thought. I mean, I don't think he should have, but all I'm saying is that the people who got him elected sort of pulled back because we had Obama. Same thing here. We can't pull back. We got to stay involved. One, you got to keep me grounded. Two, you got to keep me accountable and honest. But three, as FDR said to a group of later leaders, this is one audience, I don't have to say this, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when he brought in, at the start of his new administration, his first administration, a group of labor leaders came in and said we got to have this act and that act and this stuff for labor. And he said, I agree with you, and you've convinced me. Now go out and make me do it. That is, we have to organize the people to make sure it happens. It's not going to happen from the top down. Clearly, we have a strong mayor. We have a lot of ways to do that. But we're going to need support, whether it's civic engagement, whether it's the arts. I mean, there's some issues that people have got to demand if it's going to happen. I'm going to work with communities and stuff to do that. I want the pressure to come to me to do the right things throughout the city. So those are some of the things I'm looking at. I'll be happy to look at any other issue you would like to. I want to move the conversation in ways that we just haven't done in San Diego. I think it's the biggest change in this election in, 50 years at least. But we're going to talk about alternative energy. I'm going to use my executive power. I think I have. I'm not sure, but we'll get the council. All public buildings should be solar powered in 5 years. Now that not only does our is working on our commitment at all levels for alternative energy, but it creates jobs at the same time. I mean, we can create hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs by just saying that. So we're going to be doing things like that. I mean, climate change is something that even the mayor of San Diego has to be involved in. As I said in the campaign, if we're going to save our beaches, we got to get our heads out of the sand. That is, we got to take this seriously. At every level of government has to have has to do their part. And so we're going to have a zero. I'm looking forward to what they call a net zero consumption of energy for our city. I mean, we can do this. We can be self-sufficient in energy, water, same thing. I mean, all these things are now on the table that we're going to try to accomplish. I'll try to prioritize all that. If George ever invites me back, we'll talk about the progress toward that. Thank you so much for having the City Club. Thank you so much for the Hoya Country Day and your students for being so involved. Thank you. And let's talk about any issues you'd like to talk about. Thank you very much.
Let me just say, one person I overlooked who I met at the Epilepsy Foundation dinner is Lori Mathos. Where is Lori? She's right here. And I was so impressed with her, and Mr. Enberg was the MC of the evening. They do such fantastic work to try and find an answer to people who face the issue of epilepsy. I also want to acknowledge another colleague from Human Relations who slipped in, one of the legendary women, seriously, in this country, the great Gracia de Pic, who's in the back.
Who is that?
And finally, on the strong mayor government, you know the great irony is that Jerry Sanders opposed it, contributed $2,000 to defeat it, then became the first beneficiary of it, and now is its greatest advocate. But in that work, which was over a long, long period of time, Mark Petrovich was there at every step of the way. And people often give me credit. That's nice. But you need to know that Mark was there with his dad, and I'm incredibly grateful to Mark for what he did. We have a time.
Where's
Mr. Mayor? Dr. Mayor? Yes.
Yes, Bob, congratulations. I'm Rick Gully. I'm chairman of the board and president of your San Diego Zoo. I'm delighted to be here this morning. And I want you to know that I just announced that your San Diego Zoo will be the most sustainable zoo in the world.
Wow.
Follows on what Bob was saying about you just have to take that first step. So we put in our electrical vehicle charging station in the parking lot, and in conjunction with SDG&E and Clean Tech and all the wonderful things that are going on in this town. But my question is, we have a mutually beneficial opportunity to enhance the enterprise in the San Diego region if we can do something about the border crossing. And I think, obviously, your experience in Washington and all, I mean, we have somewhere between $2 or $3 billion of enterprise value that doesn't get here. So is there anything you can do to influence that, Bob?
Thanks, Rick, and thanks for your community contributions. I want to step back from the specific for a second, because I should have mentioned it in my opening remarks. One of the incredible assets that we have, is where we live, right? We live in a binational area. I mean, how many people in the world have a chance to do that? And yet, we see it as a cul-de-sac, of California. We put up walls. It should be the most vibrant, energetic, dynamic place in our city. It should be the central part of things. I mean, not only is it good for business, and actually, the chamber has said we leave $6 billion on the table every year because of inefficient border, but think of what it does for us as human beings to be able to involved in in a binational area. We can learn from each other, our art, our culture, our language, our history, and of course, the families that can go back and forth. This should be an incredible part of who we are. And most of the politicians over the last few decades have just ignored that as an issue. I mean, they've done their polls that says, don't mention Mexico. Because, 65% of San Diegans have never crossed the border south. There's fear, there's ignorance, there's, right now there's, quote, violence, so people, are scared. Although I go to Tijuana all the time, and it's never, it's way over, way overplayed. But I want to make that this binational area a central part of who we are as San Diego. And again, it's good for business, but it's good for us as human beings. I'm going to do that personally. I was at the Mayor of Tijuana's State of the City the other day, and he came up for the the swearing-in ceremonies. The city of Tijuana has a municipal office here in San Diego, to relate to us. I'm going to establish one. I don't know why it wasn't done before. We're going to establish a municipal office in Tijuana for San Diego, so we could. All these issues have to be talked about in an ongoing way, and it shows respect. It shows involvement. The mayor and I are good friends, and he calls it a bat phone. I call it a hotline, but we're putting in now a telephone that we just pick up without anything. They just talk to each other immediately, kind of thing, you know. So we're going to take those, I'll say, personal or, you know, level of involvement of personal visits, but we're going to institutionalize a lot of this stuff. We're going to have a much more strengthened binational affairs office in the mayor's office, where these issues are discussed. And frankly, I think Scott had to leave, but I mean, theoretically, this is a federal problem, the border, the issues that you raised. But the executive branch of either party has not paid much attention to the Congress people. There's 15 of us. I was chairman of the border caucus in the Congress. There's 15 of us who represent the border areas, southern border. That's not a lot. And so we didn't have a lot of power. But I think if the mayors of the border areas and the governors got together, I think we're going to have a much more direct impact. And right now, by the way, because the border is purposely, in my opinion, by the way, kept inefficient. You know, you can wait 2, 3, or 4 hours to cross. Who's going to cross to go buy a meal or see their family or shop when you don't know how? And it's arbitrary. You don't know how long it's going to take. If we opened all the gates that we have there, and we're modernizing that area right now, but if and 24 hours a day, we wouldn't have a waiting time. It would be 10 or 15 minutes because we've tried it, and that's what happened. But the federal government of either party is afraid that if you have efficiencies, then everybody in America who doesn't understand the border sees narcotics and illegals and terrorists coming through. But my slogan is efficiency is security. That is, if you're more efficient, you're more secure. I mean, we could establish, if you've been, you know, through most, you know, European airports, you could have a biometric card, a retina scan, for example. You put in a machine, and you go through in 7 seconds, and you have 100% guarantee that the person with the card is the person going through, because you can't, you know, forge your retina. I don't think, maybe. So if we did things like that, you could make the port, you could make that area so, you know, as a free-flowing thing with more security. So that's going to be a top priority. I mean, I could infuse $6 billion in the economy immediately if we change that, right? I mean, that's a lot. That's a big change overnight. Plus, it brings the two cities together. Our families, you know, we have so many families here. I mean, hundreds of thousands of families who, you know, have direct connection. I mean, families on both sides, and they would be visiting. I have this crazy idea. I have lots of crazy ideas, but we talk about dos ciudades y una región, you know, 2 cities but 1 region, which we want to try to do. Well, what if we had, and technically this is trivial, what if we could pick up, there was 1 area code for Tijuana and San Diego. So everything is a local call, you just pick it up, and I mean, that would make it 1 region overnight. And technically, you know, you can just flip a switch and it happens. But politically and all other ways, we're going to try. It's complicated, but we're going to try to do that. You know, and then you got families who talk to each other 10 times a day. You know, with that kind of local kind of call, right? So we can unite us in so many ways. But the wait times are my top priority. And but I want to put it into this context. And again, I mean, I've read all the last 30 states of the city address. Mexico was mentioned 4 times. And each of those 4 times, it was like a sentence or 2. And at my swearing in, we had a lot of mayors from Baja and Baja Sur. They had been at previous mayors' swearing-ins, but nobody recognized them. So not only do we recognize them, I spoke Spanish to them, I mean, in my speech, to say, you're welcome here, and we're going to have a close relationship. So we're going to change that whole sense of, as an academic, I almost want to put San Diego through a seminar in U.S.-Mexico relations. That is, we got to learn more as a city. And it's going to help us all. I mean, you know, McDonald's knows they don't hire anybody who's not bilingual. And if McDonald's has to do it, you know, it means it's good for business. So let's do it.
Maybe we can start by sending an ambassador to Mexico City who speaks Spanish. Mr. Gellin.
Or Yiddish.
I would just like to make a comment, not a question. And that's how much I appreciate, and I think all of us appreciate, Mr. Mayor, your feeling. Oh, hello? Yeah. I may sing now.
I started to say how much I appreciate, and I think all of us appreciate, the attitude you come into this office with. Don't end a sentence with a dangling participle, but nevertheless. Just the fact that you spent most of this hour talking about inclusiveness, bringing others involved, it's just something that I so much appreciate, and we so much appreciate. Now, if we can all put a little pressure on our city council folks to do the same thing and to work with the mayor, I think we're going to have a wonderful operation. Also, I must say, I had a chance to talk to the First Lady and her interest in helping the poor, helping the street people. This is the kind of stuff we've got to worry about, and not this highfalutin talk that never results in anything. So my compliments to you and congratulations.
Thank you.
We have time for a few more. Yes, sir. Let me run around with the microphone.
Hi, Bob. Congratulations. I was at the inauguration, and it truly was a spectacle to see the diversity in the room. And the level of the ceremony was not like a big ballroom. It was at Belleville Park, and it was Costco cake and bad coffee, so it was awesome. I want to thank you for starting the process to begin a community-owned power company here in San Diego. We really appreciate your working with us. Look forward to working with you a lot on this issue in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. By the way, thank you. What we did at the swearing-in day, which is less than a week ago, I guess, I asked them to move the thing out of City Hall. I mean, I just wanted to show that we were not going to be trapped in that bubble. So we had it in Balboa Park. There were over 1,000 people there. Then, right after the swearing-in, I went to 3 different schools in San Diego: high school, middle school, elementary school. I swore in a student council of an elementary school. By the way, I used the Bobby Kennedy quote that George and I thought that, I dream things that never were and asked why not. And this one little girl, she was 9 or 10, she was so impressed by it. She memorized it and she Googled it and she had it in her head and she wanted to say it out in public at something where I was. So I was at another event at a breakfast with about 700 people or something, and she came up and said the quote. And the principal told me I changed her life. So we're trying to get out to the communities and thank the neighborhoods that are involved in those schools. Then we had 5 community receptions. We didn't have one big inaugural ball sponsored by, dare I say, SDG&E or something. But we had from at the La Jolla Playhouse to the Mira Mesa High School to the Gay Center in Hillcrest to the Jacobs Center in Southcrest to San Isidro. We had community reception. We had over 1,000 people at those, and it was just the people who work in the community, our volunteers in the office. It was just saying, I'm involved in the community, and we want your involvement to continue. That's how we spent that, just the first day, to show that we were serious about, involving our neighborhoods.
The mayor was trying to remember when the inauguration was. Some of us had the opportunity to have dinner with he and Bronwyn last night, and she was saying that one night this week he came home at 2 o'clock, got up at 4 to go talk to the sanitation workers of San Diego who report to duty at 5. I had dinner with the governor of Colorado Thursday night, and typically of John Hickenlooper, he said, "Do you know how many seconds there were between now and Monday?" I said, "No, Governor, I don't." He said, "That would be 1 million. Do you know how many seconds 1 billion are? That would be 1972. 1 trillion seconds is 30,000 years before Christ. So time's important." And we have to help Bronwyn.
I was wondering where you were going with it.
We have to help Bronwyn, and we have to help the mayor's staff. That we do not tax him unduly. We have
No taxation in San Diego.
That's right. Do we have one last question? Yes, sir, Mr. Vecchio. Here.
There's a film running right now. It ran for a week at the Ken Cinema. It's now at the landmark La Jolla called Chasing Ice. It's probably the most compelling film on climate change you'll see. I think it's more important than the Gore film. And with that, I urge you all to see it and bring a skeptic with you, hopefully a person of influence or affluence, and bring him or her and have them watch that. And with that notion, I think the first place to start as far as solarizing the city, Mayor Filner, might be the convention center, because when you fly in over the city and see all those solar panels, that might make a good statement. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We got more rooftops and parking lots than any other entity, so we're going to use them.
End up by telling them your great plan for the odor problem in La Jolla.
Oh, first, I want the police guy to close your ears. All right. Well, I'm thinking we should just go up there with a hose and hose it off myself. And that's what I'm thinking of doing. I'll ask Murray for advice. Is that mayoral or?
That's mayoral, and I'll do it with you.
Ooh. We got, water and poop are biodegradable. And before this problem, it went into the ocean. So let's just restore it to its natural beauty. I've been up there and with the people there. It stinks, right? And it's just stupid. It is just stupid because, and everybody, these bureaucrats, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get approval, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm going to talk to the governor. If we can't do it right away, I think I'm just going to do it with your approval. And he'll probably have to arrest me, and all that. But thank you all very much.
You've been great. Thank you. Great American